She is Morgan Hurd, the 2017 World Gymnastics Champion for the United States. At that moment, she stood at the pinnacle of success, excited and satisfied, admired and envied by countless people. Her adoptive mother was incredibly proud of her. But 14 years earlier, she was just an abandoned baby from China. Abandoned by her biological parents right after birth, she had spent over 2 years in an orphanage. In an ironic twist of fate, it was that very year she was adopted by an American woman. And so, her destiny was forever changed. How was she adopted? How did she grow step by step into a world champion? What thoughts might she have about her biological parents? Let's dive into this extraordinary story. In 2003, a loud cry echoed outside an orphanage in Guangxi Province, China. The crying little girl was being held by an American woman named Sherry, who had come to China with the intention of adopting this child. The little girl's hands were stretched out, desperately reaching for the orphanage director's arm. This 2-year-old had already spent 2 years in the orphanage since her birth, abandoned by her biological parents. A kind-hearted person had found the abandoned baby on the street and called the orphanage, giving her a place to stay. In fact, Sherry's adoption process had already been underway for over 2 years. Before adopting Morgan, Sherry had gone through many difficult fertility treatments because she was unable to conceive. Eventually, she decided to adopt a child instead. After thoroughly researching adoption programs in the US, Russia, Guatemala, and several other countries, she ultimately chose to adopt a daughter from China. However, the adoption process turned out to be far more complicated and lengthy than she had imagined. When Sherry began the adoption process, Morgan hadn't even been born yet. After more than 2 years, in 2003, Sherry finally completed the process and was able to meet Morgan. To adopt a child from another country, Sherry had to first complete a series of procedures in the US, and she could only see photos and information about the child she was adopting. It wasn't until she arrived in China that she finally saw her daughter face to face when the orphanage officially handed her over. "Oh my goodness, she's such a beautiful child." Sherry recalled her first reaction when she saw Morgan. However, on the first day, Morgan cried a lot. Sherry's language and skin color were completely foreign to the 2-year-old. After being placed in the car, Morgan eventually stopped crying after much coaxing. Sherry gently spoke to her, "From now on, your name is Morgan Hurd. You're going to be my precious daughter, and I'll be the mom who loves you the most." As a single mom, Sherry dedicated herself to raising and guiding Morgan with great care, even though it was challenging. When Morgan turned 3, Sherry began introducing her to various sports. They started with tennis, but Morgan had no interest. She barely hit the ball and was lethargic after half an hour of trying. When Sherry encouraged her to keep going, Morgan responded by crying. So, they moved on. Next, Sherry tried swimming, but Morgan was terrified of water. As soon as her feet touched the water, she trembled in Sherry's arms. Getting her head underwater was impossible. Eventually, Morgan learned to swim, but she still didn't enjoy it. Then Sherry took her to a gymnastics gym. To her surprise, Morgan was full of energy the moment they stepped in. Before Sherry could even finish explaining the rules, Morgan had run off to follow the coach. She tried the balance beam, cautiously stepping up. Although she wobbled a bit, she managed to stay on and cross it safely. Sherry clapped with excitement, and the coach couldn't help but praise her, saying, "She's got talent." From then on, the gymnastics gym became Morgan's favorite place. Sometimes, when Sherry wanted to take her to play soccer, Morgan would beg to go to gymnastics instead. After trying several sports, Sherry realized that Morgan might have a natural gift for gymnastics. She decided to nurture this talent and help Morgan go further in this path. One day, the coach approached Sherry and said, "Sherry, I wanted to talk to you about Morgan's training. As you can see, she's a rare talent. If we treat gymnastics just as a hobby, it would be a waste. I recommend we put her into professional training." Sherry wasn't sure about this. She knew how tough professional training could be, and she feared the hardships it might bring to a young girl. While she wanted to support Morgan's dreams, she couldn't help but feel protective. Intense training always comes with its share of pain. After a full day of practice, Morgan's body would often be covered in bruises. At night, her mom, Sherry, would apply ointment and massage her injuries. One evening, Sherry asked her, "Sweetheart, why do you push yourself so hard? It breaks my heart to see you hurt like this." Sherry's heart ached the most when Morgan was injured, but Morgan couldn't let her love stop her progress. She had made up her mind, she was going to follow the path of a professional athlete. Raised to be independent by her parents, Morgan was already a determined young girl with clear goals. No matter how tough it got, she was willing to push through. Morgan clenched her fists, she was going to become the most dazzling gymnast. She stayed true to her word and worked even harder in training. By the time she was 9, she had already reached the level of an amateur level 4 gymnast. By the time she was 13, she had completed the highest level, level 10. This young prodigy became the star of the gymnastics gym, and the other kids looked up to her as a role model. It was in that year, at the age of 13, that Morgan broke into the national spotlight, stunning the entire American gymnastics community. At the Lukin Cup that year, she took home first place. Sherry was there, witnessing her daughter's crowning moment, and she couldn't have been prouder. That weekend, Sherry decided to take Morgan to an amusement park. Even though she was a genius in the eyes of many, to her mom, Morgan was still just a 13-year-old kid. Over the years, Morgan had sacrificed much of her childhood for training. This weekend, Sherry wanted to make up for that lost time. From the moment they entered the park, Sherry took pictures of Morgan in every possible cute pose. Morgan had a natural ability to pose, smiling brightly in every shot. To maintain her agility, Morgan had to control her weight, and she often had to watch others enjoy the food she couldn't indulge in. But that day, Sherry told her to enjoy herself and eat whatever she liked. Even though training took up most of her time, Morgan cherished the moments she had outside of it. She loved reading, playing with friends, shopping, going to the movies, doing the things that any teenage girl would enjoy. Her favorite celebrity was Taylor Swift. Despite her reputation as a young genius, Morgan was just a lively, fun-loving girl who adored life. Though she wore large glasses and braces, looking a little awkward, she didn't mind. She thought to herself, whatever I look like, as long as it's me, it's beautiful. At the age of 16, Morgan moved up to the adult gymnastics category, which meant she could now compete in major international competitions. When she found out she could join the adult division, Morgan was more excited than ever. This was her chance to prove herself to the world. In the 2017 World Championships, Morgan's goal was simply to earn a medal. Her all-around performance, which included 4 events, didn't place her first in any of them. But overall, her performance was stable and balanced. While she might not have had the standout strength of others, she had almost no weaknesses. As a result, when all the scores were combined, she ended up at the top. At just 16 years old, Morgan became the all-around champion of that year's World Championships. She made history as the first Asian American to win the title in this event. As a single mother, raising a child on her own wasn't easy for Sherry. To support Morgan's gymnastics dream, Sherry had even started a crowdfunding campaign on GoFundMe. As Morgan's skills improved, the costs for travel and training grew higher. In addition to traveling to competitions around the world every year, she also had to train at the Olympic Training Center in Texas every month. However, after 37 months of crowdfunding, the $3,000 goal had only received donations from 21 people, totaling $2,040. Despite the financial strain, Sherry continued to support her daughter wholeheartedly. They tried to cook at home as much as possible, eating out less, and carefully managing their money to make sure everything was in order. Sherry said, "I only have one child, and that's Morgan. I don't have any information about Morgan's biological parents," Sherry said. "Morgan and I would love to return to China, to the place where she was adopted, but we have no information about her biological parents, and we don't know if we could ever find them." When it came to Morgan's birth, Sherry had always been honest with her. "Obviously, she doesn't look like me at all," Sherry said. "Morgan has always known she was adopted, and she has come to accept her background well. As a child, Morgan often asked questions about her birth. So, they created an adoption diary where they collected photos of her and documented the orphanage and adoption process. Morgan had always known she was of Chinese descent, and Sherry was eager to expose her to Chinese culture and history. She provided Morgan with books and pictures about China, and you could even find photos of Morgan dressed in traditional Chinese clothing on Sherry's social media. Sherry had also planned for Morgan to learn Chinese dance, but gymnastics took up most of her time. Once Morgan was older and had more time, Sherry hoped she could explore more aspects of her Chinese heritage. From a young age, Morgan has always known exactly what she wants, Sherry said. She sets her goals and works toward them. Becoming a world champion was one of her dreams, and now, she's achieved it. Gymnastics is, in many ways, a mental battle. The biggest challenge is believing in yourself, believing that you can do it. This is not something you're born with, but Morgan has learned that over time. She's now heading to the University of Michigan to continue her education. In 2024, Morgan officially announced her retirement, closing one chapter of her life and opening a new one. Let's wish her and her mother all the best in this new journey.